This is A View from the Bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
Our topic tonight is probably the best kept and maybe even the most dangerous secret in the UFO community. Welcome to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. Joining me is a gentleman who's been a guest on this program several times, whose research is really foundational and really on the front lines of the spiritual encounters with, well, the dark side, the principalities and powers and cosmic rulers over this present darkness, who masquerade as entities from other worlds. He has been a long-time researcher for the Mutual UFO Network, both here in the United States and overseas, South Korea, where he's currently based. He's put his research together, groundbreaking, eye-opening research that many in the UFO and the alien abduction or abductee contactee community don't want to confront. They don't want to grapple with this. We'll discuss why that is. He's also the co-author of a new book that, again, summarizes this work and presents it to you for your consideration. The book, Piercing the Cosmic Veil, You Shall Not Be Afraid of the Terror by Night. It is our honor to welcome back to the program, Joe Jordan. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Derek, for having me back on.
And again, appreciate you getting up on a Saturday morning, your time, because of the 14-hour time difference between here and South Korea. Joe, I can't tell you how often when people ask me about this phenomenon, which, you know, Josh Peck and I wrote the book, The Day the Earth Stands Still. And so we had to address the abductee contactee phenomenon. And we referenced you in that book. And it seems that every time I talk about our book, I wind up talking about you and your research with the CE4 research group. So I'm glad that you've got a book out there now that we can point people to, because this is a phenomenon that is now coming back into the public discourse because of the so-called USS Nimitz incident that's getting so much play on mainstream media here in the States, especially Fox News. Tucker Carlson brings it up every couple of weeks. What is the subject matter of Piercing the Cosmic Veil, and what was the research that led you and your co-author, Jason December, to write the book?
Well, this book, Piercing the Cosmic Veil, is a culmination of the 25 years of research that we've done with CE4 Research Group. The book is co-authored with my new partner, Jason December, out of Huntington Beach, California. He is an experiencer, and he brings a lot of information and help to the research itself. Plus, he's on fire to help reach others like we've been doing all these years through CE4 Research Group. Over the years, there's been many people that have come and gone that have given their time and their work and their effort to be able to help CE4 Research Group get this message out. And I want to give thanks to all of those that have come before. This book, finally, after all of these years, I didn't think I would ever get a book written by myself, to where I could put all this together. I've done lots of public speaking, but I didn't feel I was an author. And then one day last year, I was sitting at dinner looking at my wife across the table, and I just said to her, I just got this overwhelming feeling, and I said to her, my book is finished. And she says, "You're writing a book?" And I said, well, not yet, but I'm going to, and it's finished. She says, "What do you mean?" And I said, well, it's finally all together, and it's ready to be put into words on paper. And over the next 4 months, I did that and put it all together. And it came amazingly simple. I'm not sure how all that worked, but it did. And what I have put together with the help of Jason in this book is something that I can put into the hands of Christians and non-Christians, where they can understand fully what this experience is about. And we hit this from a number of different angles. Not just do I start out with the first part of the book of the history of CE4 research and how we got from the beginning to where we are now, but I also opened up the center section of the book to questions and answers. Because after reading what we found in our research findings, there were more questions, that open up. It always is. So what I did was I offered an opportunity for followers of my CE4 Research Facebook page to ask questions. And I said, if you guys offer questions, I'll note you in the book as asking a question, and I'll make sure that there's an answer for it. So the center section was helped put together by all of the followers of CE4 Research on Facebook. And I put a lot of the questions in there. There'll be more questions in a coming book, the second coming book, that I didn't use in this one. But they asked some really powerful questions, and I knew they were going to be asked after readers read the book. So we were able to take this time in the middle section and answer those questions. The last part of the book is the evidence itself that CE4 research has come across. 25 years ago, we came across a particular case that went against everything else that the UFO community was talking about in light of alien abductions. They were saying back then that abductions could not be stopped. Everything we came across as MUFON researchers in the beginning of CE4 research was saying that this was not an experience that could be terminated. People were stuck with this experience throughout their lives. We did know that, talking to the early experiencers in the beginning, that these people were distraught. Their lives had been turned upside down. Their worldviews had been completely turned around from what they originally were, and they wanted help. But yet, nobody knew how to help them. People had talked about support groups. They'd talked about all sorts of crazy stuff coming from the New Age. But nobody had a way to actually help these people. And then we came across one particular case that we had to look at very carefully. When I first came across this case, I suspected that there may be something wrong here with this case. It wasn't authentic. I contacted the leading researchers that we'd been studying and reading their work and, trying to understand this phenomenon. And I asked them, I said, I got a case here I'd like to share with you and try to understand what I'm dealing with here, whether it's authentic or not, and whether you've come across this situation or not. And when I did, I shared with them that this gentleman, as a fairly new believer, had UFO encounters and abduction experiences. And it was during this one particular experience he had at night. It was very terrifying. And in the middle of the experience, he cries out, "Jesus, Jesus, help me." And immediately the experience stopped. Well, that's the question I had for these researchers. This gentleman's telling me that he was able to stop an experience, that instantly he woke up in the bed. And that doesn't make any sense of looking at everything else that you guys have shared. And that's when I was asked, can we go off the record? Every one of these guys asked, can we go off the record? And that means I can tell you what they said, but not who said it. Mm-hmm. We're really strict to keeping anonymity when people ask for it, even with experiencers that don't want their name shared. We stand by that so that we can build trust to be able to work with these people. So what we got out of these conversations with these gentlemen was, yes, we had come across similar cases like yours, where people had used prayer or reciting scripture or humming or singing a hymn, and they were able to stop this experience. And I said, well, why have we never heard about this? We're relying on you for the truth. And their answer to that was, well, we didn't know what to make of it. And, I would have been satisfied with that because that's honest. That's an honest answer. They didn't know what to make of it. But they usually followed it with another answer, like that wasn't enough. And that other answer was, we were afraid to go there because it might affect our credibility in the UFO research realm. Now I realize what's happening. So we got egos are a problem. Credibility, they think, is a problem. But actually, what we're seeing here is what is called a cover-up. Whether you like it or not, the people that you're relying on for truth in this field do withhold information, and that's called a cover-up. They always point fingers at the government for covering things up, but that's not the issue we found. So I told these guys, I said, thank you for your help. Thank you for your honesty. And you're letting me know that there's more cases like this out there. And I said, I feel it's a piece of the puzzle that's not being looked at. And when you try to put a puzzle together, which we're doing with this UFO phenomenon, all the pieces need to be on the table, or you don't have a complete puzzle, and your picture's not complete. So you don't have a complete answer to what you're dealing with. And I said, I'm going to go after this particular piece. I'm going to collect these testimonies, case histories, and I'm going to document them, and I'll make them available for peer review. And every one of these guys all said, please do, because we can. And, you know, for the 25 years that I've been working at this, we've worked with probably well over 600 cases in the past 20-some years. And, you know, I've never had any flack come from these guys on my findings. But some of the ones that have come along since then, researchers in this field that I didn't talk to at that time, some of them have been very angry, very hostile toward the findings of this information. Because what we've come across is, with that many cases working with them, I've got about 400 documented testimonies where people that have had their lives destroyed by this experience have been able to stop the experience, get their lives back, keep it from ever happening again through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And that is what the community doesn't want to hear. The community out there, the UFO community, people that follow the UFO phenomenon, they're looking for, in actuality, a savior to come from outside of this world. This world has a lot of problems. We see it every day in the news. A lot of people are living those problems. And they don't see anything coming here, you know, that's going to help them inside of our own planet. So a lot of them are looking for that outside savior to come in. If these things that appear to be showing a high technology have this ability to do what they're doing, what's being filmed and photographed and talked about, then they should be able to help us with our problems on this planet. They're looking at the opportunity for free energy and, you know, anti-gravity and all of these things that could make major changes in the way we live on this planet and could cure a lot of issues. The sad thing is, what we're finding in our research is we're not seeing evidence of an extraterrestrial biological entity visiting this world. That's not what the evidence is showing. And a lot of researchers are changing their tune on what they thought they were seeing in the beginning. A lot are not, but a lot are. And I started seeing this about 10 years ago, where they started seeing parts of the phenomenon that weren't quite making sense and were not able to be answered by normal physics. And they started looking at what they termed an interdimensional aspect, where what they felt that maybe we're dealing with here is something from another dimension, not from ours. Mm-hmm. Well, as a Christian, that's easy to understand because we believe in that other dimension. Scripture talks of that other dimension. That's the heavenly realm. That's the spiritual realm. So we're only dealing with an issue of terminology between Christian believers and secular people who, you know, don't believe in God, don't follow Jesus Christ. They're accepting the idea that there is another dimension and there are possibly beings from that dimension that possibly can interfere with us in this dimension. Well, you know, our Bible as Christians is, to me, I see that book as two complete books in one, not just Old Testament and New Testament, but I see it as a love story. The entire Bible from beginning to end is one of the most powerful love stories I've ever read. But at the same time, it's also a historical book of a cosmic war.
Absolutely.
At the same time. And that's the part I'm hitting on here in this book, is exposing what this war is and how it's affecting us and humanity. Because everybody that gets involved in this phenomenon of UFOs or alien abductions, every time you will see that it takes their focus away from the one true God. So what we're dealing with here is a major delusion coming from the dark side, the enemy, from a spiritual realm, okay? And they are able to mess with us, humanity, on this side. We can't go there, but they could manifest temporarily here to deceive us and take our eyes away from the one true God. Their purpose is to cheat humanity out of the blessed hope that God has provided for us. And the more and more and more over the years, I've seen this number increase of people being pulled away from their belief in God because of this phenomenon. So we've taken our research, put it together in this book, and show how you can understand what's happening here with this phenomenon. That we believe we're actually dealing with part of what you call the end time delusion. My mentor in the beginning of my work, the late Dr. David Allen Lewis, he wrote UFO End Time Delusion back in the 90s, and he was seeing this then, that this wasn't a physical entity that was perpetrating all these sightings and abductions, but it was a spiritual entity. He was right on it. He just didn't have the evidence for it at the time. When I met him, we had already come across the early cases, and he said, this is important. This needs to be carried on. When I'm gone, you need to carry this on because you've now got the evidence to support what I started way back then, as theory. And this is the most important evidence available in the UFO community in the world are these testimonies, because these testimonies give evidence to the true nature of what this experience is. But at the same time, these testimonies are testifying to the fact that there is a hope that nobody else in the world is offering, a hope through a relationship in Jesus Christ that these experiences can be stopped. This phenomenon is creating in our society right now a modern day religion. Okay, It is a religion in itself. This belief in extraterrestrials, it's become the new modern religion. We're losing our children and our grandchildren to this new modern religion. The sad thing is, we as a church, we're not sure how to engage this lie, how to deal with this lie, how to expose this lie for what it is. And I think right now, with the work that we've been able to put together in this one book, that right now the cost is, equal to a meal out on an evening, that you can take this book and educate yourself, your friends, your family, to understand what this phenomenon is and to expose it for what it is. I think what we put together here is the most powerful tool for the Christian church to be able to use this as a witnessing tool against this new modern religion. We have to educate ourselves as believers if we're going to witness to people from other religions. And we've been doing that over the centuries. Christians educate themselves on Buddhism so they can talk to people that are caught up in Buddhism. They teach themselves about other religions, Taoism, anything, any of the isms that you can talk about. We educate ourselves on how to deal with it and how to talk to people about it and show it that that's not the right way, that Jesus Christ is the one and true way. This is a new religion that we have not taken the time to educate ourselves on. And I believe this book gives us that opportunity to do just that.
You use the word experiencer. How would that be different from one who believes that they have been physically abducted by what they think are extraterrestrials? What's the difference between an abductee and an experiencer?
They're actually one and the same. The name changed over the years. It's just like UFO used to be the main thing we talked about. Now it's changed its terminology to UAP. Okay, it's fine-tuned itself because not everybody that's an experiencer actually has a memory of the actual abduction experience. A lot of these experiencers, their memory is more of a, what's the other one they call? The night terrors, that one there.
Right.
So it's all the same, but it's just which aspect of it. So we opened it up to where it was more inclusive. But the major part we're dealing with here, and we had to explain in this book, is this is not a physical experience. This took a lot of work to be able to put that part together. When I started getting these testimonies and recording them, like every other researcher out there, we took for granted that what these people were telling us was pretty much what happened to them. But the deeper I started looking into this, along with my fellow researcher and peer in this work, Gary Bates from Creation Ministries International, in his book, Alien Intrusion, we started seeing that what we're dealing with here was actually not physical. I mean, it could leave what it seems to be physical attributes, but the experience itself wasn't happening in the physical reality as you and I talking and living right now today. Mm-hmm. It happens in the dream state. It happens in a state to where we're not cognizant of what's actually happening around us. It happens when people are going into situations with hallucinogenic drugs, even prescription drugs have taken people to the state to where they're not right in the mind, and it opens them up to this type of experience. So everything was pointing to it being a spiritual experience, not a real life physical experience. Well, we needed to prove that. And the way we started looking at this is we went back and re-interviewed people in a different way. Instead of just having them relive the experience, we went back and started having them look more carefully, step by step, of the experience. And I'll give you an example. Whatever you did last year for your birthday, I'm sure you remember it was a memorable moment to you. If I sit you down and I ask question after question, and I ask you in the right way, as an investigator should, I don't put you under hypnotic regression. I just ask the right questions. Okay, and this is something I do along with my safety profession when I'm looking for a root cause to an accident. Okay, you got to get down to that root cause. So I took that same type of teaching that I've had for my profession and used it in this realm of investigation and this experience. So I started asking these people, let's relive the experience, and I'm going to ask you certain questions, and I want you to look at certain things. Well, if it's your birthday, which back where we started, I can get you to relive every aspect of that birthday, probably more than you actually remembered when you were actually living it. Okay? Because it's just a matter of pulling the right memories up. And that trigger to pull those memories up is ask the right question. Okay? When we started doing this, every person could remember every aspect of their birthday. Every one of the senses was recorded and remembered separately if you asked those right questions. But when we went back and had them relive the experience of an abduction, something was missing. What was missing were some of the senses. They weren't recorded. So what we were seeing here is what these people were given is a sensational memory, like a play. You ever been to a play?
Yeah.
When you go to a play, okay, let's say you go to a play where the setting is a living room, and there's people that are in the living room and they're doing the talk back and forth for the play. The setting on the stage for that living room is actually just enough objects for you to understand that, oh, this is the living room setting. But in essence, every detail is not there. Every detail doesn't need to be there for you in the audience to understand this is a living room setting. The same thing is happening during these experiences. This is why they can't recall everything, because everything wasn't given to them to remember. Okay? This is telling us that this is an implanted memory. This hasn't been given to them in a sensational aspect. So it's shocking. It's absolutely real feeling experience. This is why they always tell you, I know what I've experienced. I know it was so real. Of course it was so real. We agree with that. That's the purpose of it, is to get you to believe that this is actually happening, but it really isn't. It's the same thing that you have to go back and always have to look at something in Scripture to back this up. Remember when Paul was taken up to heaven? Mm-hmm. What did he say? I know not whether in my body or not.
Yes.
It was that real to him. Was he physically taken? I don't think so. He was taken in the spirit, but he couldn't tell the difference. That's how real these experiences are, but they're not real. Okay, you understand?
Yeah.
And this is why they always come to us. It always starts out when you meet somebody that wants to tell you that they're an experiencer. You know, I've had these dreams. You know, I wish they'd have just stayed at that, but they don't. They want to pursue it. So they go to their family doctor and they tell him about it, right? Never. They never do that. Instead, they seek out somebody that studies this stuff, researches this stuff, and usually a hypnotherapist that will regress them and find out more of what they can't remember. Well, this is something very important that we discovered. As I've listened to the many interviews and regressions from many of the researchers over the years, I don't see that they're leading these people in any way in the regression. The sad part is the people have already led themselves. And this is the power of suggestion. These people have taken what they had as a dream, recognizing it as something that other people have talked about, and they've seen it in movies and TV, and they think, oh, I must be one of these people. I'm going to go find out how much more I'm not remembering. So they've already set themselves up to be that believer, and they're expecting to have a story. And when you put yourself under hypnotic regression, you are there to please that person that's asking those questions. Those memories will come out. Okay. But again, it's not a reality. It's a setup. It's the same as hypnotherapy, stage hypnotherapy, should I say. If you've ever seen stage hypnotherapy, when the hypnotist comes out and gets people to do crazy things.
Oh, yeah. I had a good friend of mine in college who was convinced that he was a chicken. So I saw it. Yeah.
My own mother was a chicken on stage when Preston came. He did that to her. And, she said, no, I didn't do that. And I said, I've got you on video. We know you did that. Everybody here saw you do that. But they had no memory of telling him that he did that, no memory of doing it. This mirrors everything we see with stage hypnosis. So the question comes down to, if this is not real, if this is an implanted, suggested memory, and it's like a play, the question is, who's the playwright? And that's what these testimonies that we've come across show. It shows that the playwright that's perpetuating this is a demonic spiritual entity. They are giving these people a lie, because when these people have this experience, it goes against everything that the Bible teaches. It goes against everything that God talks about. It gets them to doubt God's word. And that's the same lie we deal with from the garden. When you look at the cover of that book, that's exactly what the cover is trying to show you there, is that these entities have the ability to cross that veil, pierce that cosmic veil that separates us from them. Scripture tells us they have that ability. There's many stories in there where they've done just that. But they're only here temporarily. They only manifest. UFO and UAPs, the craft that they're seeing, that's a manifestation, temporary manifestation. That's not an actual nuts and bolts physical craft. It's not built in a factory somewhere. It's an illusion that's part of the grand delusion to get us to believe in what they're doing, to get us to believe that it's absolutely real. Convincing, by far beyond comprehension, but it's a manifestation. Okay, we don't have the ability to go there, but they have the ability to manifest in our realm. And we've seen that all through history, and especially in Scripture, going way back in the Bible. So that's what we're dealing with here. They show the potential of what people end up believing is their high technology. Okay, they don't believe that they're spiritual entities. They believe that there's otherworldly energies. And they're bringing a high technology. It's just that is not a high technology. what we're seeing is the normal abilities of these spiritual entities. Okay? They don't have to abide by the same laws in the physical realm as we do, because they're not from the physical realm. Their abilities as spiritual entities is way beyond what we're able to even do or ever, discover or ever be part of. But to us, it looks like high technology. But I tell you, people, it's not. It's just a natural ability of these spiritual entities.
And what's interesting is that even secular researchers like Jacques Vallée pointed out that this appears to be more interdimensional than violations of the laws of physics. Josh Peck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Josh Peck has written a lot about that in some of his work when he gets into, alternate dimensions and so forth. But, interesting that you got a secular researcher like Mr. Vallée going there, and using terminology that, as you said, Joe, is, the language that we Christians should be speaking.
Absolutely. And that's what scares people. That's why they're not, following the work that he did. They look at it, they talk about it, but they don't want to accept it. Because to accept the work and of what he found and what others like him have found is to accept the possibility that maybe might be something a lot different than what we ever imagined. And that's, I believe, what's scaring these people. People keep bringing up the Brookings Institute report that NASA asked for back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And, the question was, how is discovery of extraterrestrial life going to, affect humanity? And people have come away with a lot of different concepts on what was talked about there over the years. And a lot of people in the research realm think that the people that are going to be most upset when disclosure happens is the Christian people and people of faith. And my research actually, I'm hope that I can use, especially in this book, to be able to get into the hands of believers to understand that that's not going to be us. When this actually comes out, it's the other realm, the other group of people, the secular non-believers, that are going to be turned upside down and disturbed by the actual disclosure when it comes out. And I believe that's why disclosure is on hold the way it is. I've talked to enough people in the research realm and that have come across this, and are pretty much in agreement to where they're seeing this also as not what we think it is. And the thing is, to a non-believer, this could be the most scariest thing to ever come out in your life, to be told that, no, we're not alone, but it's not what you think it is. It's something much, much more sinister. That's going to turn the public upside down.
Yeah.
But right now, we already know that as believers. If Christians will just take a moment, read this book, and pay attention to it, they will realize that we already have disclosure as a Christian. We already have been given disclosure. They're just not coming out and saying it in Christian terms, but they're giving us everything for us to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Plus the testimonies and the evidence and the research we got absolutely supports it and backs it. It tells us that not only are these entities not who they say they are, but it also tells us, these testimonies, for instance, tell us that our God is real, Jesus Christ is real, and a relationship with him gives us that authority over this realm where no weapon at all could ever be designed or used to stop these entities. But as believers, we've been given that authority through the name of Jesus Christ. This phenomenon can absolutely be stopped and turned upside down if believers would just take this information and use it and get these people to understand they're under a delusion.
It's, as you mentioned, a very, very old phenomenon. There's a reference in chapter 4 of the book of Job by his friend Eliphaz, something that sounds very much like one of these nighttime terror encounters, beginning at verse 13. Amid thoughts from visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men, dread came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence. Then I heard a voice. And then it goes on from there. But that sounds an awful lot like what experiencers endure in some of these encounters. In fact, Sharon has had an encounter that is very similar to this, not extraterrestrial, but certainly demonic. She's talked about that in the past. But interesting that the leading voices in the UFO phenomenon, and we saw this in 2017 when we saw you at the 70th anniversary of the Roswell crash, along with the late Joyce Ahrens, who just shared her remarkable testimony, that the MUFON National Convention that year was headlined by voices who were very clearly New Age, and there were some then disclosures that came out about the leadership council for the national organization, which included. I don't want to name any names and make this a personal thing, but who were very clearly promoting a New Age agenda. So is there a connection between the pushback against your research, Joe, and this, what appears to be move inside the leading research organization or investigative organization in the UFO community to look for or try to validate an alternative spirituality?
Not as much do I see that in MUFON itself. You'll see it amongst some of the members, but not in the hierarchy side.
Okay.
They're still focused on the scientific and nuts and bolts. Over the years that I've been a MUFON member, since 92, I've had an opportunity to personally speak with 5 different international directors about my research. They were all amazed at the findings that I came across. They were all understanding that it was done by the proper protocols that MUFON sets down for doing research. I mean, in other words, I did it the right way. The only thing was that they just didn't understand how I was going to be able to present it without having the audience get up and leave, because it goes against everything that they're actually promoting. And I said, well, I'm hopefully work on that part. Maybe I'll get that opportunity. When the alien intrusion documentary came out with Gary Bates a couple of years ago, we had used MUFON in that video, and the members were quite upset, and they contacted the international director and said, "Is this the way we're going with this?" And he told them, back off. He says, "This guy's done the research the right way. It's another piece of the puzzle, and we have to give the opportunity to have it looked at. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It's still a piece that needs to be shared." And that's what I'm saying to the secular community with this. If you're going to actually look for honest answers to this, then you have to look at all of the evidence. And we have a piece of the evidence that they really don't want to look at, but I think the church needs to look at it, because with their help, we can reach these people and bring our children back, our grandkids back, from this new religion that's going to distract them, because it's an ungodly religion, okay? And it's dooming them to an eternity that we don't want them to be part of. We want to be able to offer them a real hope. And I think that we've been able to put it all together in this book to do just that, to make it a tool for every believer out there to be able to easily understand what we have here and how to deal with it.
It was really interesting as Sharon and I dug deeper into the research that we've been doing into ancient Mesopotamian cosmology and the origin of demons, to see how that research actually dovetails with your research, which is why in our book Veneration, which on the surface appears to be about the ancient cult of the dead and ancestor veneration by the ancient Amorites and Canaanites and Egyptians and so on, we included several chapters on the modern UFO abductee, contactee, experiencer phenomenon, because when you get right down to the spiritual origin, that's where it comes from. And we were delighted when Gary Stearman of Prophecy Watchers picked up on that, and we did 2 interviews on the book with him, and one of those was all about the UFO phenomenon, because this is not really a new deception. It's maybe a new tactic in a very old war.
It's just, how do we say it in simple terms? The emperor's new clothes.
So yes, so an honor to be a small contributor to your book. But Piercing the Cosmic Veil, You Shall Not Be Afraid of the Terror by Night. Joe Jordan and his co-author Jason December. Critical research. How many testimonies did you include in the book, Joe?
Well, the original intent when I started putting the book together, I had over 100 that had never before been seen. And as I started putting the book together, I realized that this is going to be way too big. So I knocked it down to a little over 60 brand new, never before seen testimonies. And that's the sister to the ones that are on the website, ce4research.com, where I have about 150 on there. So I'm still sitting on, just since I started writing the book, I'm still sitting on it close to another 100 testimonies that have never been shared or seen that I'll be putting in the next 2 books that are coming. And I did say that, the next 2 books that are coming.
Excellent. Well, I'll put a link to the website, ce4research.com, and, of course, a link to where people can get a copy of the book, Piercing the Veil. Joe, again, appreciate your time, especially early on a Saturday morning, your time, and especially your research, which, again, I believe, especially in this day when this is, you are correct, a new religion, your research flies in the face of the narrative that's being promoted by mainstream media, and maybe without even really being fully aware of the facts and in knowing what it is they're doing. Your book, you and Jason, really a critical piece of the puzzle, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Derek.
CE4, the numeral 4, research.com. If you want to find out more about the abduction phenomenon, or if you need help, they can help you. CE4research.com. The link is in the show notes. Speaking of spirits, we're going to talk about the spirits behind a group that has gone mainstream in a big way in 2020. I'm not going to name it now. Let's just say the initials include the letters B, L, and M. And I'm not talking about Major League Baseball. That's ahead as A View from the Bunker continues.
Unveiling the ancient realms of demonic kings and Satan's battle plan for Armageddon. Skywatch TV is proud to announce 2 new special offers. The Veneration Collection with optional Red Wing Saga series. Sold separately, this exclusive offer retails for $90. Yours now for only $35 plus shipping and handling. But wait, now you have the option to upgrade and expand your collection by including all 5 previously released books in the Red Wing Saga. The expanded collection, which includes all 8 books and the Search for the Rephaim DVD documentary, holds a retail value of $190. Yours now for your donation of only $100 plus shipping and handling. So don't delay. Order the Veneration Collection with optional Red Wing Saga series now. Available at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Driving the internet to think every Sunday night from the heart of the Missouri Ozarks. This is A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. vftb.net is the website. You'll find us online there. Also, you'll find links there for our free mobile app. Good for Android and iOS devices. Just take us right into your smartphone or tablet. That way you never miss a program. On social media, you'll find us at View from Bunker. That's at Twitter, at View from Bunker, or at Derek Gilbert. Tend to tweet more news at my personal Twitter handle there. On Facebook, View from the Bunker, or on Parler.com, Parler.com, at Derek P. Gilbert. Another tragedy in Los Angeles this past week. This actually began August 31st as a man named Dejan Kizzy had an encounter with Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies. And I admit I've not dug deeply enough into that. The stories are conflicting. The family rejects the official story from the Los Angeles County Sheriffs. But the bottom line is that Dejan Kizzy was shot and killed by sheriff's deputies on August 31st. That's led to a number of protests led by Black Lives Matter. BLM co-founder Dr. Melina Abdullah leading the by now familiar chant, "Say His Name," outside near the location where the shooting took place. You can find that video online if you want to look for it. Sadly, as we're recording this on Sunday, September 13th, within the last 36 hours, a pair of Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies, a 24-year-old man and a 31-year-old woman who's the mother of a 6-year-old boy, ambushed and shot in the head in broad daylight by what looks like on a security cam, a kid. He looked like on the security camera, he wasn't even as tall as the roofline of the car that the two deputies were sitting in, but he walks up to the car, shoots them both in the head, and runs away. No arrests yet. This is outrageous. There is no justification for this. I think this speaks to the spirits that are at work on the streets of America as we become more and more a post-Christian nation, or an anti-Christian nation, if you prefer. We are becoming more and more pagan in our orientation. We are not moving into an age, sorry, Richard Dawkins, of rational atheistic enlightenment. We are moving into a pagan era and turning to pagan gods. And that brings us to Black Lives Matter. My presentation for the upcoming Hear the Watchman conference, and I'll tell you more about this in just a bit, which is a virtual conference at the end of the month, deals with the spirits behind Black Lives Matter. Credit where it's due. A gentleman I interviewed this past week for Skywatch TV, Abraham Hamilton III. I mentioned him last week, who's the general counsel for the American Family Association, and he hosts a daily program, weekday program on American Family Radio, 5 p.m. Central Time, called the Hamilton Corner. He pointed out on his program August 18th that what the executive director of BLM, Patrice Cullors, what the co-founder of the Los Angeles chapter of Black Lives Matter, Dr. Melina Abdullah, are doing was they encourage people to say the name, say their name. This has become by now a familiar chant at Black Lives Matter protests, is not a commemoration of those who've lost their lives in encounters with police. It is literally, and this is in their words, the words of Dr. Abdullah and Ms. Cullors, this is a summoning. This is a spiritual This is a ritual in which they believe they are literally summoning the spirits of the dead. Now, having spent the better part of the last 3 years researching demons and the veneration of the dead, going back through 5,000 years of recorded human history, I'm more studied on what the ancients in Mesopotamia did and believed about their interactions with the spirits than how that is manifest in the present day. But it was startling when watching a discussion recorded back in June between Dr. Abdullah and Ms. Cullors for the Fowler Museum at UCLA, in which they discussed the spiritual nature of Black Lives Matter, and saying very openly that this is a spiritual movement, and talking about the practices, the spiritual practices as part of the movement. It was startling to see them openly discussing practices that I've been reading about for the last 3 years, except I've been reading about them in the context of the ancient Amorites, the people that God moved out of the way in ancient Canaan to create room for his people because he claimed that land as his own. And was very clear in his instructions to Moses on Mount Sinai that they were not to do the things that Black Lives Matter is now doing on the streets of America. You are not to consult with necromancers or mediums. 4 times in the books of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, God was very clear with Moses. Don't do this. And it's not because it doesn't work. It's not because it's a waste of time. It's not because you're just, engaging in an exercise of imagination. It's because there are spirits out there that will answer, but they're not who they think they are. I mean, Jesus on the cross said to God, "Forgive them," the people who nailed him to the cross, "for they know not what they do." I would say that Dr. Abdullah and Ms. Cullors, again, co-founder of BLM Los Angeles and the executive director of Black Lives Matter, know not what they do. they think they're just engaging in a spiritual tradition that was handed down from their ancestors in West Africa, from the Yoruba people of Nigeria and Benin and Ghana. This practice of venerating the ancestors and summoning the ancestors and the spirits of the dead to work through the living to achieve certain specific goals. Most people who are following BLM and participating in these rituals on the street don't have any idea where it comes from or what it means. But it's almost like, watching it, it's like, wow, I mean, this is what the Amorites would do on a regular basis 4,000 years ago in what is now Syria and Iraq and Lebanon and Jordan and Israel. And it's the stuff that God told Moses, don't do this. Do not consult with mediums or necromancers, because they're dealing with spirits who lie and who want to kill you. And Dr. Colors, Dr. Abdullah and Ms. Colors are not only doing this, they're leading hundreds and thousands of other people in performing this ritual. The saying the name, the pouring out of drink offerings or libations for the purpose of, frankly, becoming possessed. And as part of my presentation for Hear the Watchman, I draw on this video. Again, you can find it online. Just look for Fowler Museum, UCLA on YouTube, and you'll find the discussion. It's called Prayer for a Dancer, I think is the title of the program. You'll see the discussion between Dr. Abdullah and Ms. Colors talking about the importance of the spiritual work they're doing. They see this as not a racial justice movement, but as a spiritual movement. But I think as Christians, it's incumbent on us. It is required of us when somebody says, this is very spiritual, to ask the question, really, okay, what spirits do you represent? What spirits are you working with here? Because spiritual as a term is really vague. It doesn't tell you anything about what they believe or what they're trying to accomplish. But as they go through the conversation, very relaxed discussion between two old friends, you realize that what they're talking about is pagan rituals that, I hate to break it to them, it does not derive from West Africa. You can trace it much farther back. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest that the ancestors of the Yoruba people emigrated westward from the ancient kingdom of Kush, which was Ethiopia and Sudan, sometime in the 7th or 8th century AD, after the invasion of the Muslims. The Islamic invasion pushed the ancestors of the Yoruba out. They emigrated west, bringing spiritual practices with them that we can trace further back to the Amorites of the ancient Near East. Venerating the ancestors is documented in ancient Mesopotamia hundreds of years before Abraham walked the earth. It was an old practice, an ancient practice, when Moses ascended to Sinai to get the law from Yahweh. And that is now being worked on the streets of America today. Is there a connection between the demons who are responding to these summons and the violence that we're seeing on the streets of America? I think there is. Now, I don't think these rituals are giving the demons extra power. They're not sitting around waiting for, people to say the right words in the right order to give them permission to enter our time-space domain. They've been here since the flood of Noah. But as we move deeper into a post-Christian America, a neo-pagan America, there are more people who are willing to listen to and be influenced by these spirits. That's the difference. The early church, the apostles, they would have recognized what's going on very, very quickly. Because to them, that was the world in which they lived. They saw their pagan neighbors doing this kind of thing every day. For us in America, this is new, but the Christian church in America today is so spiritually ignorant that we don't recognize these pagan rituals taking place on the streets. And I recognize very well that compared to what the mainstream media is reporting on this subject, that I sound like a raving lunatic. But I'm standing on not just sound scriptural support, but also a whole lot of secular, non-Christian evidence that documents these practices going back almost 5,000 years. That's what's going on the streets of America today. Literally, people calling on spirits that they believe to be the spirits of the dead. But, well, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So, some conferences coming up. Speaking of these spirits, these are the spirits of the giants, the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. And next weekend, the Nephilim Again conference kicks off. My presentation is on the Nephilim in the Bible and why they matter. It's an hour and 45-minute presentation, so L.A. Marzulli and Russ Dizdar graciously allowed me to get off the hook. Everyone else is doing 2 presentations. I just did like 2 presentations worth in one long stretch, an hour and 45 minutes. It includes the HD drone footage provided by our good friend Aaron Lipkin of the Serpent Mound of Bashan. And I talk about why that mound, which is 3 times longer and 4 times higher than the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, why it's relevant to the discussion of the Nephilim. This, again, kicks off on September 18th, as you're hearing this. September 18th runs through the 20th. And in fact, I just got the schedule emailed by Russ Dizdar. And let's see, 7 p.m. Friday night, the 18th. Begins at 7 p.m. Eastern time. 7 p.m. Eastern time, that I believe is UTC minus 4 now that we're on daylight savings. Well, anyway, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Friday, September 18th. L.A. Marzulli on the Trail of the Nephilim Part 1. Then an interview between L.A. Marzulli and Gary Stearman. And then Russ Dizdar's presentation, The Occult Quest for Hybrids. Then on Saturday, September 19th, beginning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, L.A. Marzulli on the Trail of the Nephilim Part 2, Russ Dizdar, Transhumanism and the New Age Quest for Hybrids, and then our colleague from Skywatch TV, Drew Graffia, Child Sacrifice from Antiquity to Modernity. And then Saturday afternoon, beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, yours truly leads off my presentation, Nephilim in the Bible, Why They Matter. L.A. Marzulli on the Trail of the Nephilim Part 3, Drew Graffia, Biblical Super Soldiers and the Gods They Serve. That should be fascinating. And then Russ Dizdar, Prophecy, Artilects, AI, and the God Machine. And then Saturday evening, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, fascinating, a live stream Q&A session with Russ Dizdar and L.A. Marzulli. To find out more and to sign up for this presentation or this conference, virtual conference, go to NephilimAgain.com. That's NephilimAgain.com. And if you sign up, you get a DVD set after the conference of all of the presentations. And that is quite a deal. Now, the following weekend, September 25th through 27th, Here the Watchmen are presenting a virtual conference called Igniting the Fire. Igniting the Fire. I've got my presentation off to Mike Kerr just today, like 2 days, less than 2 days ahead of the deadline. David Heavener, Josh Peck, Gans Shimura, my colleagues from Skywatch TV, Drew Graffia, and Josh Peck be part of that one. David Paxton, Pastor Billy Crone, Pastor Mike Spalding, and Chris Taylor, also Pastor Paul Begley, all contributing presentations to Hear the Watchmen for this conference, September 25th through 27th. And again, my presentation is on the spirits behind Black Lives Matter and features the video discussion that I described to you just a few minutes ago. For more information and to sign up for Hear the Watchmen's Conference, Igniting the Fire, September 25th through 27th, log on to hearthewatchmen.com. True Legends, the Final Warning Virtual Conference, October 16th through 16th and 17th. That features Steve Coyle and Tom Horn. You'll find out more at gen6.com. The Last Trump Virtual Conference. This is what Prophecy Watchers now is rolling out in lieu of the conference they had hoped to present at the end of October in Colorado Springs. The Marriott there was not willing to guarantee them enough space for people who had signed up. So what they're doing is a different type of virtual conference, 33 speakers, 50 presentations spread out over 40 days from October 1st through November 9th. 40 days of presentations rolled out from October 1st through November 9th. Features Sharon and me, plus Gary Stearman, Tom Horn, Jonathan Kahn, L.A. Marzulli, Bill Salas, Tommy Ice, Pastor Billy Crone, Dr. Randall Price, Brent Miller Jr., and more. You can find out more online at prophecywatchers.com. That's prophecywatchers.com. And then we get into November, a live conference a live conference here. The Watchmen say that they're working with the Hilton in Orange County, California. That's right close to the John Wayne Airport there. At least it's still called the John Wayne Airport for now. No guarantee as to how long that will be. There are people that want to cancel John Wayne now. This looks like it's going to be a face-to-face gathering. So, coming to Orange County, November 5th through 8th, hear the Watchmen, Sharon and me, L.A. Marzulli, Bill Salas, Pastor Paul Begley, Gons Shimura, David Heavener, Michael Boldea, Jamie Walden, and more. And you can find out more about that conference as well at hearthewatchmen.com. Boy, pray for our country, pray for our leaders, and pray for those who are not recognizing the spiritual danger they're in. Because while they may be useful idiots for the principalities and powers who are manipulating them, they don't realize the jeopardy that they are in. They are in grave danger, pardon the pun. They don't see the big picture. They may not listen, but they may. Pray for them, and when the opportunity presents, be prepared to give a defense for the hope you have in Christ Jesus with gentleness and with respect. A View from the Bunker is a production of Gilbert House, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Our announcer is DC Good. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is A View from the Bunker.